we'll see gusts of 50, 60, possibly 70 miles an hour. Now, this is not the storm of the century, Callum, but given that it's April and April storms are relatively rare, I think the impacts will be disproportionately high, particularly as many people are still on Easter holidays and might be thinking of going to the seaside, for example. Big waves are crashing onto the shoreline here.
Storm Kathleen is on the way, and it looks as if Ireland will feel it first. An orange wind warning kicks in for Cork, Kerry and Waterford as of 7 o'clock this morning. But some places in the UK this weekend will feel surprisingly warm. It's all very confusing, so let's speak to John Hammond, meteorologist at Weather Trending. Hi, John.
Hi there, Callum.
Really good to speak to you. Right, shall we start with Storm Kathleen, where it's going to hit, how widespread it will be, and clearly how serious is it going to be?
Yeah, well, it seems like if the relentless rain doesn't get you, the winds will. It's been like that the last few months, hasn't it? Kathleen is winding itself up as I speak. It's approaching Ireland, as you mentioned. It is Ireland which is going to bear the brunt. But just to the east of Kathleen, we're going to see a zone of particularly strong winds whistling up the Irish Sea to affect many western coastal areas of mainland Britain and Northern Ireland in particular. Now, within this zone, at the moment, the gusts aren't too strong. We've got sort of 30, 40, 50 mile an hour gusts, which is windy, yes, but not disruptive and certainly not damaging. But those winds are going to increase further over the next few hours. They're going to peak sort of later this morning into early this afternoon. So it's for Devon and Cornwall, West Wales, around Irish Sea coast, both of Northern Ireland, northwest England, and more widely across southern Scotland. Here, we'll see gusts of 50, 60, possibly 70 miles an hour. Now, this is not the storm of the century, Callum, but given that it's April and April storms are relatively rare, I think the impacts will be disproportionately high, particularly as many people are still on Easter holidays and might be thinking of going to the seaside, for example. Big waves are crashing onto the shoreline here. It doesn't hang about, Kathleen. It will whistle through and the winds will ease down later on today, but still pretty blowy more widely across the country. So as you mentioned, although it's going to be remarkably warm across eastern areas, it will be a windy warmth. That dry, warm air getting funneled up from southern Europe. And this is across eastern areas of Britain. This is the focus for the highest temperatures today. Somebody somewhere will probably reach 20, possibly 21. That will make it the warmest day of the year. East Anglia probably top of the shop. But more generally across central and eastern Britain, though it'll be windy, will be into the high teens, possibly low 20s. So a day of contrast west to east across the country.
Is it odd to have that sort of contrast?
Yeah, I guess it is. It's unusual to have a very deep area of low pressure and yet clear blue skies and sunshine in combination. It is just the fact that on the western side of the country, we're getting a lot of moisture in association with Storm Kathleen. But at the same time, on the eastern side of the country, it's sucking in much drier air from southern Europe. So, yeah, it is relatively rare to get sort of damaging, disruptive winds in combination with remarkable warmth. Just a note on the winds, actually, Callum. Its impacts, I'm expecting ferry disruptions, certainly. There'll be bridge closures. There'll be the odd tree down. But as I mentioned, not the storm of the century, but given that it's in April, we expect the weather to be settling down with drier, quieter, warmer weather. I think the impacts will be disproportionately high. So people should be aware that there will be some impacts from Kathleen, though, as I say, it won't hang around. Things will die down later on today.
If you'll indulge a slight abuse of my position here, John, should I get excited about the prospect of live streams of airplanes struggling to land at airports later on?
Always. Listen, I love watching that stuff. I mean,
too.
Yeah, I think exactly right. I think there will be those sorts of images coming in later on today, particularly across our western airports. For Heathrow, perhaps not so bad, but certainly for the likes of Bristol, Cardiff, Manchester, Belfast, Glasgow airports, you're going to see a bit of this going on, I think, with those aeroplanes landing or trying to land later on today. Hopefully for those travelling today by air, the delays won't be too severe, but I suspect there will be delays because aircraft, of course, with those sorts of winds, those sorts of gusts, 50, 60, 70, they have to what's termed stack. So basically, they can't land as quickly as they normally would. So I think there will be delays at airports and parade later on today.
Noted on the airports to watch out for. John, thank you very much. Great to speak to you.
Pleasure.
That is John Hammond, meteorologist from Weather Trending. I logged on to a live stream the other day, actually, and I saw 2 go-arounds in my first 5 minutes. It was brilliant.
You are so dull.
I'm such a nerd.
Do you have nothing
and
else
I'm
to do?
unapologetic about it. Well, it was while I was making my dinner, in my defence.
I have nothing to say. This.